Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's me again, and I was starting to get that itch again to review something or post something. Didn't really feel like doing a gameplay video, um, and of course, sometimes I review figures that I get or buy, but this time I wanted to review something that I've had for a very long time, and never got around to reviewing it. And honestly, sometimes I don't review some of the stuff that I have because there are so many other great reviewers on this platform. But I noticed that not a single person has ever reviewed this figure. This is actually a more rare figure than I remembered it being because I've had it for so long. So I wanted to make a quick video about this. Of course, this is Bio Broly, one of the least popular Dragon Ball movies, and by proxy Dragon Ball movie villains of all time. For me, I am in the minority. I actually do like the Bio Broly movie. I don't think it's the worst Dragon Ball Z movie of all time, not even close. Lately, and well, actually the last couple of years, and even lately, my opinion still is that Super Android 13 is probably the most boring or unimaginative of the Dragon Ball Z movies, of the original ones at least. So yeah, I mean, back to what I'm talking about. I wanted to talk about this figure since, like I said, nobody's talked about this figure. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, there's probably only one other Bio Broly figure ever in existence in terms of actual licensed products, not counting resins or Chinese bootlegs or anything like that. So this is a really, literally a one-of-a-kind figure. You can find this on eBay. It's going to cost you a pretty penny, though. I think when I got this a couple years back, I got it for a good deal, maybe a little bit under $40, excluding shipping. But it's gonna be a pretty penny because it's a rare figure. And speaking of rare, let's talk about the line. As you can see here, Legend of Saiyans, there is some dust there. This is an old figure. If I remember correctly, this came out when Dragon Ball Kai was being broadcasted in Japan, so circa 2009. That's how old this figure most likely is. Need to fact check later, but I'm pretty sure this came out in 2009. So let's get into it because, like I said, it's a one-of-a-kind figure. Most figures, you have something you can compare it to, or a set standard, right? I don't think there's ever been a Bio Broly figure prior to this. And I really haven't seen too many since. So it's hard to say whether or not it looks like him because Bio Broly is such a indescript looking character. Of course he stands out because it's Broly covered in a bunch of sludge. So this will actually look really unique in your Dragon Ball collection because it's like the one Dragon Ball figure that, I'm sorry, it doesn't look like a Dragon Ball figure. It looks more like a Scooby-Doo villain. You know, in the old 60s Scooby-Doo cartoons, a lot of time it'd be a human under a costume, but, before they would reveal the villain, he would be covered in some type of sludge to look supernatural or non-human. So that's the closest thing I could think of. But honestly, right, with that being said, it's a good looking figure. And of course, if you cannot tell, this is a small figure. Most of the Legend of Saiyan figures from back then, with excluding a couple of them, most of them came this small. So just for comparison, right, you see a Game Boy cartridge, everybody knows how small Game Boy cartridges are. And then if we need a figure comparison, we have this fig pen here. It's even smaller than that. It's nearly the size of my WCF figures, as you can see. So that's how small it really is. So, if you're a person that cares about size in comparison to its price, there you go. But honestly, I would get this figure if you're a hardcore collector. If you're a Broly fan and you want to have like a well-rounded Broly collection. I'm not a Broly fan, but I thought it was awesome to have something like this because you'll never see anything like this unless WCF makes it or something like that. I think it's pretty neat. Of course, try to find it for a decent penny because it's worth a lot. It's a rare figure. Most of the Legend of Saiyan figures online are out of print, so they all cost a lot. If you're curious about this line, like I said, it was a line back in the late 2000s, early 2010s, and they had a lot of obscure characters. For example, there's a very famous and very rare collection of Bardock's Squad. There are some Ginyu Force ones too that are also a little bit expensive. The line stopped, I believe, around Yeah, it's really hard to say, but they only had certain characters, so it's hard to say. It's like they got Bio Broly, but most of the characters that this series had were prior to the Cell Saga. So it had a lot of Namek Saga, Saiyan Saga characters, and like King Vegeta. So for some reason, the King Vegeta figure is a normal size figure, meaning it's like 6 or 7 inches, whereas this one is barely 3 inches tall. But most of those figures are actually more like this as opposed to that King Vegeta. So I don't know why that King Vegeta. I know there's a Vegeta figure as well in that line that's a little bit bigger. But yeah, I wanted to make a quick little review of this, just to just so it can be put out there in the zeitgeist of YouTube's algorithm. If anybody's ever curious about looking up this figure, had questions about it, there's not a single video out there about this. I still can't believe that, it's crazy to think that with how oversaturated the Dragon Ball community is, especially in the figure space, that there are just some things that people still have not talked about yet. So I'm going to probably try to make it my mission here and there to review things that other YouTubers just never have. So you guys tell me what you think. If you have any questions about this Bio Broly figure, it's really hard to give it like out of 10 or stars because it's literally one of the most unique parts of my collection and unique figures I've ever seen when it comes to the Dragon Ball franchise. But yeah, you guys let me know. Take it easy.